let's go to community-based programs. This is, again, the pinwheel, or whatever we're calling it now. We will change the name of this very, very soon, I see. But so the idea here is that people could localise programs that it doesn't matter whether you're running a state government program or a council program or even a program operating in a local pool, that there would be a way to use this pool and to single out the areas that you're focused on. You might have a program that's focused on older people and that involves swimming and water safety education as a risk factor. That might sort of principally be angling towards improving the ability for the local population over the age of 65 to use their boats on the ocean, perhaps. So we're going to talk about, these ones are very cultural examples of how people are activating water safety outcomes at a community level. Let's move on and introduce our next speakers. We have Sara Scarce, and Sara is a solicitor with diversity and inclusion as her specialisation, and she's involved with an organisation, the Aqua English Project. And we have Achol Madong, and Achol is an inclusion coordinator, swimming and water safety with Royal Lifesaving WA. So two great speakers working locally. Firstly, can I welcome you, Sara? Sara, would you just introduce yourself briefly and the project that you're working on?
Yeah, hi, my name is Sara, and I'm one of the co-founding directors for the Aqua English Project. We've been in operation for about 15 years now, predominantly in southeast Queensland and to the north as well. So we're having a good time with that. We've outreached to about 33,000 culturally and linguistically diverse people across that time and stage. And we mainly target adults over the age of 16, with 70% of our participants unintentionally being women as well.
Fantastic. We're going to dive deeper into the Aqua English Project in a second, but Achol Madong, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, as Justin mentioned, my name is Achol Madong. I'm the inclusion coordinator, swimming and water safety for Royal Life Saving Society WA. I look after multicultural programs, Aboriginal programs, and special access swim and survive programs in the metro area. So I've been at Royal Life for 2 years now, and it's going well so far.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to you both. On the first webinar, we talked about the multicultural community specifically, but we talked about it at a very high level in terms of the objectives of the water safety strategy. I think having you both here gives us an opportunity to look at this from the community's perspective and some of the activities, the things that are working at a community level, and some of the pitfalls, the things we need to look out for. So Sara, can you just flesh out a little bit more about what makes the Aqua English Project tick? Because I do think you've found an interesting entry point or entry points into water safety and communities in Queensland.
Yeah, so we came with the recognition that for us to really look at whether it's drowning prevention or social inclusion, to get grassroots community programs going, we needed a holistic approach. So we've often found ourselves as the middle organisation, obviously between the groups that represent our multicultural communities, whether or not they're English language institutions or NFPs that work on settlement services, and then of course the aquatic industry itself. And quite often the conversation between those two isn't as fluid as it could be or readily understood between both parties. So we find ourselves mitigating between the both and trying to come up with a program that's either 4, 6 or 8 hours that incorporates, we call it the 4 E's now. So engagement, how we engage community, how we empower them, empowerment, how we integrate swimming with essential English, that's our 3rd E, and then a subsequent consequence of those 3 things can often be, and I want it to be, employment. So seeing some more diversity within the workplace that way as well. So that's us in a nutshell.
Fantastic. So just going to the one of the E's there, that the English, 2 E's actually. Let's go to English and employment and talk about how important the link between those two, sort of the initial training in English and swimming. It seems like an odd pair, but also the employment, I think, is something that's really important.
Yeah, so, when we started Aqua English, I listened to the other speakers. We were very hardline. It was about drowning prevention for us. And we came in very hardline, as an engagement or recruitment strategy, and that's since evolved to more of an social inclusion strategy. So what barriers affect entry to aquatic centres or being able to safely swim? And the barrier that comes up the most is English. And there's a lot of hidden language and subcontext and meanings around the swimming pool. So when we finish in a centre after 4, 6 or 8 hours, it's like we were never there. We would like to know that participants can communicate effectively with the front desk and say they would like a concession pool entry, or to enrol their kids into swimming lessons, or that they know where the deep and shallow end is, or they actually know what the M in 1.2 M for meters means. So we have to really work on empowering that way and using the language that we use around the deck, which can be very ochre in some particular regions. So heavy accents and heavy tones on deck as well. So yeah, English is vital. And then of course, if we're talking about employment, if I wanted to see our bicultural aquatic assistants turned into water safety officers and getting their lifeguard and swim teacher qualifications, I need to know that they can communicate effectively and do risk assessment and all of those things that they need to be in any workplace, not just our workplace. Yeah, so that's how English fits, and we get to work really well with the ESL teachers and TAFE and work a little bit more on integration of this strategy into curriculums as well. So yeah, it's always a work in progress.
Yeah, fantastic. So Achol, I'm assuming you were nodding a little bit through Sarah's discussion. Can you tell us a little bit about the programs that you're working on and how you go about that?
Yeah, so our approach to drowning prevention is we look at swimming programs and water safety education as one project. We don't separate swimming lessons and the rest of the stuff that we do outside of the water. We have a multicultural steering committee. In that multicultural steering committee, we have community groups, service providers, and aquatic centers that are members. We work together to co-design and co-deliver the women's program, men's programs, children after school, swim and survive lessons. We do water safety talks in the community, first aid training to empower the community to be safe in and around the water. So a lot of the stuff that we do, we work in partnership with the aquatic centers and the communities to make sure that those programs are tailored to each community.
And how important is it to tailor the programs to each community? And what are some of your successes in that area?
Well, we understand that each community group has different barriers to participation. So our role is to act as we eliminate those barriers, whether it's cost, language, transportation, whatever the cost, the barriers to participations are, that's our job to remove those. So some of the things that we've done in the past, for example, our women's only lessons. Some groups are okay to do their sessions at a local center without the worry of who's around, but some community groups may want private access. So we've worked with local councils such as the City of Stirling's Leisure Park Balga to run women's only night swimming, where we have the whole center closed for 2 hours. We have female swimming instructors, we have female lifeguards, female deck supervisors, and yeah, through our discussions and meetings with each group, we're able to find out what their needs are. We work with the aquatic industry and the aquatic centers to make sure that we tailor each program to meet the needs of that group. Just because somebody has, special requirements or barriers or religious or cultural beliefs, that's not a reason for them not to participate. One of the things that we encourage or we repeat to our community is that you are part of this community. You should have access to your local services. Just because you have reasons why you can't participate in regular lessons, it's not a reason to stop, or it's a reason why you shouldn't ask for lessons. So empowering them to speak up and to come to us if they have any problems. And for our industry as well, educating ourselves. So that's why we have that multicultural steering committee. We do cultural awareness training. And we empower and train our staff to be able to deliver these programs.
Fantastic. Like I do think that the idea that you're working with removing individual barriers is a key point, very specific to each community. And it sounds to me like are you working individual by individual or community by community or generically across the industry? What's the key there?
What's working for us is the fact that we've built strong relationships within with different communities across the state. So within the metro area, we work with service providers that work in high coal population areas or high Aboriginal areas. We work with community leaders and community groups. So a lot of these communities will have an association, and within that association, they have their own leaders that look after different things. So whether it's a females group or a men's group or a youth group, they have different leaders within these communities that have high priorities in certain areas. But swimming it's an area that we find a lot of people are interested in, but without the information of where to go and how to access the services, they obviously cannot participate. But through the relationships that we've built with the community leaders, we're able to promote swimming and water safety to the members of those communities. And we work with service providers.
Great, Achol. Sara, I'd like to ask you, I do think one of the challenges here is sustainability, funding and sustainability. So where do you sit on that challenge, really, whether these programs only happen when there's funding available and there's a constant tussle to try and find funding available versus making that change more sustainable and less reliant on ad hoc approaches to funding?
We have been strategizing that for about a decade now. One of the critiques sometimes we get when we apply or repeatedly apply for the same pot of funding is that I have to show something different, but the needs are always constant because the new user groups coming in, migrants, new arrivals, refugees and humanitarian entrants, their needs are essentially the same. They come in as a lower level English speaking and non-swimming. So I can't change that. But look, it has to be holistic. The approach to this strategy and the approach to a grassroots level implementation is holistic. And for me, that's the recognition that, I need all angles, all levels within the water safety and swimming context for support. And we would be unsustainable without our partnerships with council. So we have really good relationships with councils, Gold Coast, Logan, Brisbane, Lockyer Valley, Toowoomba, Cairns. And that's where the sustainable programs happen for us. So to give you an example, under the Active Parks Initiative, and I'm sure that there are similar ones Australia-wide, there's access to free and low-cost programs. And traditionally it was just for parks. And we had to lobby for a long time to convince people that a council pool should be considered a park. And now we have permanent funding, particularly in Brisbane, for 8 weeks of every term for a very low cost adults only swimming lesson, deep water running class and aquarobics class at 3 venues across Brisbane. So it only costs that participant pool entry. And what we've been able to turn those programs into are feeder programs. So when we do get the bigger hits of funding to address significant needs that align with migration trends and where people are being placed, we actually have a feeder program in existence to push them into. And they might stay on that feeder program because they know that we're there and they're comfortable for another year. But a lot of the times now they're moving off of that feeder program and remaining very active community members within an aquatic perspective. So for us, grassroots initiatives with council and partnerships with councils and having feeder programs in existence that will catch anyone coming in those programs that we get broader bouts of funding from. And then obviously as a project now and as an NFP, we're exploring other earned income revenues to keep things ticking over that way as well. So always something happening.
Chal, is funding a challenge in Western Australia, and how do you go about creating a sustainable effort?
It is a challenge, and I do agree with what Sarah has said. Yes, they may say, well, we funded this before, but there's always a new group of people that need that service. So we find that, for example, a lot of our participants, some of them have been here for more than 15 years or more than 10 years, but have never had access to swimming and water safety. So through the funding that we received, a lot of our programs are subsidized. So participants do pay a small fee, and we find that small fee actually is great because they do commit to the program. They see that they are contributing, and it's an introduction or just a transition to swimming lessons in their local community. So they do understand that swimming lessons are expensive, and yes, they are subsidized, but through the small, I guess, the small fee that they pay, they do see a value in the lessons, and they feel like they're part of the community or part of the program, and that they're not receiving a handout, I guess.
Thank you very much. There's lots of positive feedback to you both in the chat. Lots of people inspired about the programs that you're running, and very, very encouraging. So I'd like to thank you both for joining us. Achol, I'd really like to thank you because you learned about your participation today at about 7:30 last night. So we apologise for the late warning, but we're really pleased that you could join us today. So thank you both. Thanks, Achol. Thanks, Sarah. Have a good day.
Thank you.